Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. You are listening to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. The spotlight this week goes to section hiker Austin Wallis. Austin caught my eye on YouTube a few months back when I was looking for people to follow who put out videos regarding the Mountains to Sea Trail. I found myself thoroughly enjoying watching Austin share his good times on the MST. I also enjoy the fact that Austin is willing to go to extreme measures when it comes to finding his perfect kayak setup. You'll hear more about that here shortly. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode, and now on to Austin, where you can find him on all the social media sites as Side Trail Adventures. All right, Austin, welcome to the podcast, my fellow North Carolinian Mountains to Sea Trail section hiker. Austin, thank you for joining me this evening or this afternoon.
Thanks for having me. It's such a great opportunity to be with y'all today, and just being a part of the podcast. Is my first podcast, so it's exciting.
Yay. And I should have hit the record button, I don't know, 15 minutes ago? I mean, because we've just had some really, really good conversation.
It's gone forever.
And it's gone forever. I said, well, let me hit the record button. Let's see if we could get some things back. So Austin, you and I are going to be talking about your section hiking of the Mountains to Sea Trail, your YouTube channel, Side Trail Adventures. We're going to be talking kayaking. And I also noticed on here when you sent me some information back, deciding what we're going to talk about on the show, your camera gear.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. So you might be the first guest that I really go over like full on camera gear, what you carry when you're backpacking, which is really cool. And I'm extremely interested in your hammock setup, because I am venturing into the world of getting off the ground and stopping being a ground dweller and hanging from the tree. So I've got
some Kool-Aid you can drink here.
All right, cool. And you hammock people, I am learning. I mean, you guys are serious.
It's a cult.
It's a cult. It's serious business, and I want to be a part of it. So, but let's start off with the hiking. So
sure.
I want to tell everybody how I found you. I found you on YouTube because I was actually looking for people that were showing videos about the Mountains to Sea Trail. And you and another gentleman, you guys are about the only ones that really pop up. So before we get to your YouTube channel, tell us a little bit about Austin, who you are, how you got involved in the outdoors, and kind of what led you over to the Mountains to Sea Trail.
Well,
I know, big question.
the outdoors has kind of always been a part of my life. My mom always says that I went camping before I was even born, because we grew up camping on Cumberland Island National Seashore, which is on the South Georgia coast, and we went there as a family almost every year growing up. But when she was pregnant with me, she actually went camping. So I was there even before I was born.
You had no choice.
No choice. I was along for the ride. But that camping has kind of always been a part of our family. My brother and I were both Eagle Scouts, all the way up through elementary school, all the way up through high school. And so it's always kind of been there. And, life happens, and camping was just kind of something in the back of my mind, but it wasn't really something that I went to for recreation, if that sounds right.
Yeah, like life gets in the way. You start,
Right.
you go, you have a career, and you got to, go 24/7, 365, work. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I don't have to do that all the time.
Exactly. But no, it happened when I was, like you said, life happens. I joined the military and deployed overseas. And the second time I came back from Afghanistan, and I found myself in kind of this weird mental state. It was for anyone that's deployed, whether it's through combat or not, coming back home is an adjustment, if for lack of a better term. And I had a harder time coming back the second time. And I was in a unique place where I was still on leave, so I was still getting a paycheck, but I didn't have any obligations. I didn't have to do anything. I had 3 months off while I was still getting paid. And I decided to go take a solo trip to Cumberland Island. I had never done a solo backpacking trip before. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of great gear. I had like a stainless steel pot, and I borrowed some stuff from my parents, and I went 4 days out in Cumberland, and it was exactly what the doctor ordered. It was just my way of kind of resetting, and I came back so refreshed, and it just felt good, for lack of a better term. It was a salve for my soul. It just but when that happened, I never really I know I felt better, but I never realized what the outdoors could be for me. And so fast forward again, and find myself moving to North Carolina with my wife, and getting a job here in North Carolina as a first responder, and started watching YouTube because we had some time on our hands. And so my buddies and I were like big Joe Robinette fans. And if you're into YouTube, Joe Robinette's this Canadian, does a bunch of canoe trips and bushcraft and everything like that.
Uh-oh, something else I got to watch.
Yeah.
Thanks for the new YouTube rabbit hole. Okay.
But we were big Joe Robinette fans at the time. We're like, hey, let's do a canoe trip. How hard could it be? So there was 5 of us, and then one guy brought a dog, and so, but I was kind of one of the trip planners, like trying to put this together, because I was one that actually owned a canoe. So it was
well, that's a good start. When you're going to go on a canoe trip, somebody needs to have a canoe, right?
Right. And so I started doing research on the Neuse River, because we all live here in Raleigh for the most part. And so we're just going to try something close by. So I'm looking at the Neuse River, trying to figure out how to paddle it. We wanted to start in Raleigh, and we didn't know how far we really wanted to go, how far was reasonable. And so I started doing research. And almost, I want to say it was either the first or second result I got was the Mountains to Sea Trail. Mm-hmm. And I was like, huh. And so I start pull it up, and sure enough, there's a trail guide to paddle the Neuse River, starting in Raleigh. And I was like, well, this is perfect. It's like,
and what is this Mountains to Sea Trail?
Well, yeah. And I was like, well, this is cool. And so I, did a little bit of research, and I was like, oh, so this is like a legit trail. It goes, across the whole state. And so we did our canoe trip, and it was an adventure. It was actually, one of my buddies, John, did most of the video for the trip. And so he let me compile it all, and it's actually on the channel if you're interested, but it's mostly just B-roll and music. But
you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. But after that trip, it kind of opened my eyes to the Mountains of Sea Trail. And I had started watching Darwin on YouTube, and I'm still a huge Darwin fan. I got into backpacking or watching backpacking on YouTube, and it just seemed like everywhere I looked, it was Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, Continental Divide Trail. It was the big three.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with the big three. I don't think I've ever got it in me to hike any of those. Physically, mentally, financially, it's just not, it's not as much as I would love to take, 6 months to a year off and go hike. It's just not in the cards. But
there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Austin. There is absolutely nothing. That's why we're section hikers. We do what we want. We section hike trails. It doesn't have to be the big three.
Right. But what I found was that when I talked to people or listened to people, whether they were making their own video or watching it on Facebook or anything like that, it was like those were the only 3 trails in the entire world that you could possibly hike. And I'm like, well, no, they're great trails. I mean, the Appalachian Trail, I've hiked that or hiked parts of that, and it's beautiful. Well, I mean, who can say they don't like it? But I was like, there's so much more out there. And so 2018 is when I started just making videos of our camping trips when we went out. And that kind of fueled my interest in making videos. And it started as just making videos to share with friends and family. When my buddies and I would go camping, we'd make them, they would take video, I would take some video, and we'd all put it together. And then I would make a video and send it out and be like, oh, look what we did last weekend. And one of the guys I worked with was like, you should make this into a channel. And I was like, I'm an introvert by nature. And so, putting myself out there is a big step.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know, it's the internet, and
yeah, you hear all these horror stories. Like I thought that too. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have so many critics. Like, people are just going to like be all over like, oh, she doesn't know this and she doesn't know that. I mean, I had that fear like, oh man, I'm going to be wide open here with this podcast. So I'm right there with you. But you know what? It hasn't been like that.
No, it honestly has been one of the most fantastic decisions I've ever made. Because once I put it out there, I was trying to come up with a name, and at the time I was kind of in that mentality, like the big 3 trails are great, but there's so much more. There's all these side trails that you can go down and have an adventure. And I was like, bam, side trail adventures, and I felt like that kind of was a big enough umbrella that I could talk about just about anything I wanted.
Anything. And I think people limit themselves, when they only talk about, and I'm an Appalachian Trail section hike completer. I've almost done it twice.
Right on.
And I don't want to limit myself on the podcast because I'm like, man, I want to section hike wherever I want. I don't want this to be specifically AT, PCT, CDT, Arizona Trail, or even the National Scenic Trails. I want it to be, whatever anybody's out trying to do as a section hiker while they're still working, why they still have families, why they still have other things going on. Because like you said earlier, it may not be in your cards, but there's something in your cards. And I think for you and Side Trail Adventures, by the way, you can find Austin on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Side Trail Adventures. You recently did a video. I think the main video that caught my eye recently is you made a video of how much you love the Mountains of Sea Trail.
Yep.
I thought that was great.
Well, that was kind of a collaboration with some other YouTube channels. It's funny how things happen. When I started my YouTube channel, it was 100% just to, I don't, you know what? I don't even really know why I did it. But but I did it because it seemed like a good idea at the time. But the things that I have gotten from creating the channel and putting out content, I've been completely blindsided by how many people I have gotten to meet. You, perfect example.
We would have never met. No, nope.
Right. But I say that to say this. I met another guy on YouTube, As the Crow Flies Hiking. His trail name is Crow. And it would that video, that My Favorite Trail, that hashtag My Favorite Trail video, was his brainchild. And he had a group of other YouTube channels he brought us all together and said, what do you think of this? Here's a few talking points, if you don't mind, like just kind of keeping the same structure across all the videos, but talk about whatever you want. And so that was how that particular video came to be. But it was when he said, pick your favorite trail, I was like, oh, it's Mountains to Sea Trail. Like I'm
like hands down, right? I'll give you another one. So I was listening to another podcast. My friend Lori, she has a podcast called The Hike, and she had a gentleman on, Leonidas.
Yes.
I was actually out on the Mountains to Sea Trail completing hike number 22 of the day hikes. I remember it vividly. It was Falls Lake, and Leonidas was on there talking about the Pinhoti Trail.
Yep.
So sometime the next week or so, I was like, oh, I got to look up Leonidas on YouTube. So I look up Leonidas on YouTube, and there you guys are hiking.
Yep.
So you guys did a trip together, and I'm like, all right, I got to get on this. I don't know what's happening. So I'm watching him and I'm watching you. And now we're getting ready to talk about here in a little bit. I had to start researching bear canisters because we're not going together, but we are going to be venturing out on another trail out west that kind of goes against your side trail adventures, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Right.
Next thing I know, I see you talking about bear canisters, but go to Leonidas's channel because he talks about them all the time. So see, Austin, I mean, it's this has all come full circle, and it's because, at the end of the day, we put ourselves out there, and I encourage anybody who's making content, put yourself out there. I don't have any trolls that I know of. And if I do, I just delete them or whatever. I have no problem doing that, but it is a big connection place for those of us that are interested in similar things, I guess, is the moral of the story.
Sure. Another great example of a friendship formed because of my YouTube channel is with Pete Beck from the channel River Kings. Pete is quite the personality, and as soon as he listens to this, he's going to laugh when I say that. But he is just a fantastic person to start with, and then his channel is awesome. He does everything from kayak camping. He's the guy that made me drink the whitewater kayaking Kool-Aid. So now I've got all this whitewater gear and go whitewater kayaking and partially drown occasionally, but he and I hit it off because of our connection through YouTube. We were able to talk about kayaks. We're able to talk about camping. We're able to talk about YouTube algorithms and views and all the statistics that YouTube throws at you for videos. And we've developed a great friendship in the last, 6 months or however long it's been since I got to shake his hand for the first time. But yeah, meeting people was the last thing I thought was going to happen from YouTube. So it's just been a blessing for sure.
Well, I love it. I have really enjoyed your channel. And for those of you, go over, give Austin some love, Side Trail Adventures. And I promise you, and I'm going to put this in quotes, you're going to hear about some good times. So
I'm still working on the trademark for that. So
you guys are going to have to go over there and find out what that means, but I guarantee you're going to have a lot of good times. So, well, first of all, before we move on, thank you for your service in the military. Thank you for what you do as a first responder.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that the outdoors allows you to have an escape, have somewhere to go, have a outlet with your YouTube channel, and formulate a bond with the Mountains to Sea Trail as your favorite trail. So, what segments or sections have you completed? There's 18 people on the channel are sick of me talking about the Mountains of Sea Trail, but there's 18 segments. So which ones have you completed of those?
So I started with segment 10 because I live in Raleigh. It just seemed like the natural way to start. Just Uber to the trailhead and start hiking. And so I started with segment 10 and then got the bug. And my brother and I attempted segment 1 and failed miserably. That's also up there if you're interested on the channel. But the hike that I did with,
and we love failure, so let's go. Yes. Everybody, go watch because you learn from other people's failures, and then when you go out and have your own, make sure you throw it up on YouTube as well, right?
My goodness, yes. But when I hiked with my brother and I hiked with Crow and Leonidas was segment 1. So we started at Klingman's Dome and finished segment 1. Then my brother and I did segment 2 a few months later. And then my brother and I also paddled segments, the paddle route down the Neuse River, segments 11A to 16A. We did that all in one fell swoop. So we put in at Smithfield and paddled our 2 kayaks all the way. Technically, the end is Pine Cliff Recreation Area, which has been closed because of hurricane damage. So we kind of just snuck around. We got permission and landed at a private beach just past it.
Why not?
Right.
Now, how long did that take you, the paddle portion?
We did it in 8 days. I think we could have done it in less. But
and how many miles a day are you paddling when you do that?
At least, our daily average was between 20 and 25. But our first day, we had a very favorable current, and we did 33 miles the first day. So it kind of just depends on what we were feeling, and especially the farther down or the closer you get to the coast, the camping options get a little more. It's a little harder to find safe and legal places to camp, and so that kind of dictated where or how far we would go on a particular day. But it was 177 miles when it was all said and done. So
gotcha. And that's a good time on the river for sure.
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. Just getting to spend the time with my brother, but just being out there. And the thing that I love about the Mountains of Sea Trail, one, it's extremely accessible. It's for the most part within a couple hours drive for anyone that's here in North Carolina. But what I like about the Mountains of Sea Trail is it's not necessarily about the grand views or the nature, and it's showcasing the state. That
is 100% for sure.
And it, sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's maybe not as pretty. But it's the state, and I, North Carolina is my adopted home. I'm not from here. My wife and I both moved here, but it has become home, and it makes me. The Mountains of Sea Trail shows me all of these different places in North Carolina that I didn't grow up knowing. So it's a way to introduce me to it. And I love it. That's one of the reasons that I love it, is because it's not about the traditional, what you would think of when you go through hike something. It's about what you're walking through. It's about the people, and the homes that you're walking past. When we stop,
and the small towns, I can't get over the small towns. I mean, they're just phenomenal.
And how, perfect example, when we stopped in Seven Springs to stay the night, folks offered up their yard. They opened up their yard and we camped in their yard, and just great people. And I think that you don't get that from one of the big 3 trails, or you may, but it's in a different way. It feels more like home when you're on the Mountains of Sea Trail.
It is in a different way. And I've done, one of the big 3 trails, and, I have aspirations to section hike several trails, but there is something about the state of North Carolina having its own long distance trail. It's kind of like, I equate it to, for those that live in Wisconsin, they have the Ice Age Trail. It's a similar, it's 1,000-mile trail, and it goes across their state. And I want to encourage people more. If you live in Ohio, you should do the Buckeye Trail. Go see your state. If you're here in North Carolina with us, find us, go hike on the Mountains to Sea Trail, and I love that it has the segments, the mountains, the Piedmont, and the coastal plains. And when I got to the coastal plains, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but I don't know about all this, but I tell you what, I've been pleasantly surprised, and it has been phenomenal.
My two favorite parts of the Mountains to Sea Trail, and like I said, I haven't done a lot of it. I've done a handful of sections, about 400 miles or so. My favorite so far is the mountain section. Obviously, everybody loves the mountains, but the section of the paddle route just above New Bern, the Maple Cypress is the area. If you're interested in videos, it's shameless self-promotion.
No shame here. Promote.
Day 6 of our Noose trip. So if there's a whole video for day 6. It shows that, and the scenery in that section of the river was breathtaking for me. The cypress groves. It felt like you were in a cathedral, a natural cathedral. And you didn't want to talk because you were afraid you were going to disturb something. And it was absolutely incredibly beautiful.
I love that. I mean, I'm literally right there right now. I mean, I love that so much. So Austin, we know a little bit about who you are. We know about your YouTube channel. We know you are a kayaker, and I think you're a nut with gear. From what I can tell, am I correct on that?
I have a problem.
You
that's the first step to getting better is admitting you have a problem.
Admitting. So I'm glad you're a nut with gear, because I don't know where it was. I don't know if I saw this on your Facebook. You put somewhere that you traveled to find the ultimate kayak. Like, you searched and searched and searched. And I love it because I'm a freak like that. I do the same thing. Like, will just... And if it's 5 states away, I don't care. I just go get what I want. So tell us a little bit about that story.
So what happened was, Well, going back to Pete from River Kings, he has discovered it's a German company called Prion, and the kayak is called a Yukon Expedition, and it is the perfect blend of a long expedition style kayak, but it can handle whitewater. And I never really fully appreciated kayak hull design until I met Pete and started looking at all the different kayak hulls. But this particular kayak, the Prion Yukon Expedition, it's tailor made for long distance kayaking through whitewater. And I also own a touring kayak, a Wilderness Systems Tempest 170, and it's a 17-foot sea kayak, for lack of a better term. And I took that on our trip to the Current River in Missouri, and it managed it. But 3 of the other guys, Pete being one, had these Prion Yukon expeditions. And
I can see where that went.
And so I was able to manage as far as maneuvering and that kind of thing. But you could just see them. It was so much easier for them to move around the river, and they had tons more space than I did. And I was like, I need one of these. And so looking on Facebook Marketplace, it's just kind of a crapshoot on what you find, and, be in the right place at the right time. And I found a Prion Yukon Expedition on Facebook in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I was like, because this is the first time, I had been looking for 6 months. This was the first one I had found anywhere, and they were selling it with another kayak, essentially the same kayak but without hatches, and they were selling it as a pair. And I had first messaged them and was like, I'm very interested in the yellow one, and I got no response. And I was like, if I don't get this kayak because I'm not willing to go the distance, I'm going to be upset with myself. And
this could be anything, people. It could be a kayak, it could be a backpack, whatever you want. I mean, go the distance.
And so,
hey, I might title the episode that "Go the Distance."
Go the distance. But long story short, I offered to buy both kayaks, and the person immediately wrote me back And
yeah, you do have a problem.
Well, my plan, and this is what I told my wife. This is why she didn't divorce me. I was like, I'm going to sell the other one, but this person, that this is the only way they're going to part with this one is if I buy both. So I'm talking to this person up in Pennsylvania, and they're like, "Oh, where are you coming from?" And I told them Raleigh, and they're like, "We're in Pennsylvania, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." And so they thought I was insane. My wife thought I was insane, but I got off work Saturday night or Sunday morning. I had been working all of Saturday night and drove up from Raleigh to Hershey and picked this kayak up and drove it back. And
and life is good.
Life, but I finally had my Yukon Expedition kayak. So I'm still in the process of renovating or bringing her back to life. She was definitely neglected, but her name is Marigold. My wife names all of my kayaks.
That is sweet.
But yeah, so sometimes that's what you have to do for this hard to find gear or equipment or anything like that. The same thing happened for my whitewater boat. I have a Liquid Logic Flying Squirrel 95, and the same thing where if there's a popular boat or a popular piece of gear out there, if you have to strike while the iron's hot and snag it. And there were a couple of times where I would find the whitewater boat I would want, and somebody would get it before me. And same
you
thing.
Decided no more. No
more. So I drove to I can't remember the name of the town, but it was Western North Carolina. It was about 4 hours drive each way for my whitewater kayak, my Flying Squirrel. It's amazing at the new norm that you create for yourself.
I know
when you start drinking this Kool-Aid.
Well, Austin, I thought I was bad because I'm bad with shoes. I mean, I'm bad with trail runners. I'm not kidding. I just can't even talk about the obsession I have. Oh, well, that shoe will work better for me. Oh, well, this one. And I've been hiking for years. I don't know why I do this, but I do. So I'm glad mine seems to be a little bit cheaper though.
Smaller, easier to store.
Smaller, easier to hide, Right. Oh no, I don't have 5 pairs of that. Don't worry about that.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, now that we know you're obsessed with gear, which I think is awesome, and rabbit holes and all those wonderful things that you're willing to do so you can have a wonderful and the outdoor experience that you want. You are also a hammocker. And you love your camera gear. So, okay, I just have a couple questions about hammocking. Have you always hammocked, or did you tent and decide, okay, you were a ground dweller as well?
It was definitely an evolution for me.
Gotcha.
I have been a hammock camper, I've been a tent camper since forever. And then because of YouTube, go figure, was when I started considering hammocks. And I looked at, I've laid in a hammock before, and I always thought they were so confining. And I was like, they're comfortable, like if you want to take an afternoon siesta, but as far as like getting good sleep, getting your REM cycle in, I was like, I don't know if that's going to be for me. And so REI was having a sale on their Quarter Dome Air, which is their bridge hammock. And for those that aren't familiar with bridge hammocks, it's still a hammock, but it's got spreader bars. So it essentially keeps the hammock spread out, and it doesn't collapse on you like a cocoon.
Well, I have a question for you on that, because I've heard about those hammocks because I'm learning myself. Can you sleep on your stomach in that style of hammock?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I started out with the REI Quarter Dome Air, and that was my first hammock ever, and absolutely loved it. It, REI, typical REI, it comes with everything you need, comes with the tarp and all that stuff. So it was kind of a good one-stop shop for me to get myself in the door. And there you went. And there I went. I was starting. And through the course of using that hammock, I found what I liked and what I didn't like about it. And so did some more research and discovered the Warbonnet Ridge Runner. Warbonnet being the brand, Ridge Runner being the model of the hammock. And the Ridge Runner is War Bonnet's bridge hammock, and I'm not quite to the point of going all hammock or all tent, and so I have an air mattress, Thermarest air mattress.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Yeah. I mean, are you okay? Because I've heard like, okay, once you get used to a hammock, once you get used to your setup and knowing how to set it up, you're not going to want to be on the ground.
Oh, which is 100% true. Because now that I have my Ridge Runner, I sleep just as well in that, if not better, than in my bed at home.
You're not the only one that said that to me. So, but before this episode comes out, I've got an episode that everybody heard. I went to, it's called a swing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a spring swing. And I have never seen so many people obsessed over hammocks in my life. But I became very educated on hammocks. And it's like, oh, no, girl, you don't want to be on the ground anymore. You want to do this, this, and this. So I am learning. So I do appreciate that you're kind of what you just said, kind of in the middle there, that you still have your sleep pad and things like that.
Well, because when I bought my sleep pad, and I bought a Neo Air X-Therm, which is an expensive pad. And I wasn't ready to just be like, well, I'm not going to use this anymore. and so that was why I wanted to try to keep that.
Austin, you drove to Pennsylvania to get a kayak. You can get rid of the pad, okay? You can
I like that. I think you can appreciate it, though. I like to have options.
There you go.
But for the girl that's got all the trail runners, I like to have options.
I know, yes. and way more gear than just trail runners, but I won't go down that road, that hole either.
But the traditional way to keep the underside of the hammock warm is through an underquilt. And I still don't own an underquilt because, and this is blasphemy in the hammocking world. I think that they like my air mattress probably weighs the same, if not less, definitely takes up less space in my pack. And it's, it can get a little wet, it's not the down. It's just more user-friendly for me. And so that's why I haven't made the full switch to having an underquilt.
Well, it's what works for you.
Right. Yeah. There's no wrong answer. And that's kind of the cool thing about hammock camping is there are so many different ways to do it.
I mean, that's what I'm learning. That's why I got confused. And then I'm just like, okay. I had a guy, and he said this last week at the podcast. He said, buy once, cry once. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me because I cry a lot. Okay. I cry a lot.
I mean, there's truth to that. I mean, if you buy cheap gear, you're going to end up buying more cheap gear later.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what he was saying. Like, okay, you could buy this, or you could end up, you're going to have this and this by the time you get done. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy once, cry once, and go from there. Yep. So, all right, let's get into this camera gear.
Yeah.
But first, I guess we should tell everybody, well, by now, I think everybody knows I'm going to the John Muir Trail this summer.
Very excited.
And Austin's going to the John Muir Trail this summer. I don't think we're going at separate times, but congratulations on getting what I call the golden ticket.
You as well. I had no appreciation for how difficult it was until we started trying. And I was like, it felt impossible. Like there is no chance. But like you said, it's the golden ticket. It
is the golden ticket. Like, I mean, you went to Pennsylvania, so Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, it has produced for you a couple times this year.
That's it.
So what awesome camera gear, because I know you're a camera nerd too. So I'm a gear junkie. I won't say nerd.
Nerd is accurate.
Do you have it narrowed down on, because I know we're going to see some phenomenal videos, hopefully. Do you have it narrowed down, your camera gear for the JMT?
Absolutely. So my one disclaimer is that I am 100% self-taught. I have not taken any type of photography class or videography class. I watch a ridiculous amount of YouTube videos on like how-tos and composition with videography and that kind of thing. So that's my disclaimer. So if my videos stink, that's why.
Let's blame some other YouTubers.
Right, exactly. No, but my workhorse camera is a Canon M50, and that is a mirrorless camera that can take interchangeable lenses, the M series lenses from Canon. So I've got that body, and then I've got 2 lenses that I'm bringing with me on the JMT. My brother, brothers like to make fun of their little brothers. He's my older brother, and so
Well, of course they do.
But he told me when we finally decided we were going to go on the JMT, he's like, "You're only allowed to bring 1 camera." And and that's
so all this other stuff you have on here, like GoPros and this and that, you're not taking that.
I laughed at him. I was like, "There's no way I'm only bringing 1 camera
on the John Muir Trail." That's a once in a lifetime. I'm looking at this like this is it's beyond it's the platinum ticket.
Oh my gosh, yes. But so I've got my Canon M50. That's going to be like my main vlogging. I've got a external mic, a Rode Video Micro that's attached to the top for sound, and that's going to be kind of my workhorse for vlogging and stills and video. And it's just a great all around camera. And I haven't really nerded out as far as switching it into manual mode and changing exposure rates and white balance and all that stuff every now and then when I'm feeling froggy. But most of the time,
I don't even know what you're talking about. So you're way above me.
Most of the time, I just want to turn it on and take a picture. And so I keep, but the M50 is good for that. It's got it's just a smart camera. So you can put it in automatic and it's going to give you some great results. So that's why I like it. But I got that, and then I also carry a GoPro. Whether at the moment I've got a GoPro Hero 8, and I use that when I want to get walking shots because it's got much better stabilization than the M50. But it's waterproof, so in the event of inclement weather, I can pack away the M50, and I can still the GoPro's still got decent audio. It's not great, but I can use that as my all-weather camera. It's a lot less awkward to talk to when you're in like a crowd or whatever. You've got this massive camera with a dead cat microphone on top.
Yeah.
And you're talking, it's pretty hard to blend in when you're doing that. So GoPros are a little less in your face. And I'll have my Canon M50 and my GoPro Hero 8 with me on the John Muir Trail. But the challenge that I've had with the JMT specifically is data storage.
Oh yeah.
Because gosh, I'll go through. So to give you some.
I mean, how many cards, like SD cards?
I can't even count. I've used past trips as kind of a gauge for how much data I will need. So like on the Noose trip, I had an Olympus TG870, which was kind of my original adventure camera. I had 2 GoPros, I had a drone, and I had my Canon. And I came home from an 8-day trip with about 900 gigabytes of photo and video. Oh yeah, it made me go cross-eyed trying to get it all together. And so that's what I've kind of got in the back of my mind as I'm
because you don't want to limit yourself. You don't want to be halfway through the JMT and be like, I'm out.
Yeah, it's unfathomable for me. And so what I've done is I've got I can't remember the name.
You're going to ship more cards in your bucket when you are you doing a resupply at Muir Trail Ranch?
That's a good idea. But the system I've kind of worked out, there's where is it? I'm totally unprepared. I was going to tell you what it was actually called, but it's a device that you can take your SD card, you plug it into this thing, and then it connects wirelessly to your phone. And so you can view all the files and everything on your phone. And then I've got a terabyte SSD hard drive that connects to the phone. And so you can back up files that way.
And then reuse the cards, right?
Right. So, and then in theory, I can upload, I've got my Google Drive that I can upload pictures and video to as well. So, but the kind of the process I have in my mind right now is having this hard drive as kind of my backup, and then having just insane amounts of SD cards and using that over and over again. So I think I'm going to be able to make it work. We'll see. My brother and I have got a 6-day trip. We're actually going to be hiking segment 4 of the Mountains of Sea Trail.
Awesome.
We've got 6 days allocated for that, but that's going to be our true shakedown trip
You're taking everything.
Yep. It's going to,
Yeah.
I'm going to pack exactly like I'm packing for the JMT and then just see what happens. So.
Well, Austin, I mean, seriously, I wish you a phenomenal time on the JMT this summer. Have a great trip on segment 4. And I think you and I could probably continue talking for hours. I mean, because I still have more and more questions. But for the sake of time and our listeners, this has been awesome. Everybody go over to Side Trail Adventures on YouTube. Check out Austin's videos, learn about what Good Times is all about. Check them out on Instagram, Facebook, and Austin. I am going to turn it over to you to end us out with either a statement, a quote, or maybe something you want to leave the listeners with.
All right. Well, first off, thank you for having me on here. This has been a fantastic opportunity. Like I said, we're just going to have to talk more.
Yes, we are.
It's the short version of the story. But good luck to you as well on the JMT. I'm a little disappointed we won't see each other out there, but we'll definitely be able to follow each other virtually through.
Exactly.
But one of the things, and we danced around it a little bit at the beginning about why I enjoy the being outdoors. But I always go back to a quote from Thoreau, and I used it on one of my videos where I didn't talk, and which was kind of interesting. It's one of my wife's favorite videos. Which I'm wondering why now, but I.
Well, you've had a revelation, Austin.
I'll take that as a clue. But the only speaking that I do in that entire video is at the very beginning, and I recite this quote from Thoreau, and it has meaning for me because it's the reason that for me that I go out, and it's this feeling of living life to the fullest, and so I'll just go ahead and say it. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. And that's kind of what the outdoors means for me is reducing life to its lowest terms, removing all of the noise in our life, removing all of the extra stuff that we don't really need. And when you remove all of that, you're able to see clearly what's important and find out who you really are. And so that's what it is for me.
Well, thank you, Austin, for coming on the show. I feel like we are really good friends now,
Right.
And you're just going to have to come back on and chat again. Appreciate it, Austin.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
I'm so glad I finally got a chance to connect and chat with Austin and share with you all another example of a section hiker out there getting it done on the trails in their own way. And thank you, Austin, for your continued service in the military and as a first responder. I am very thankful for what you do to serve our country. Have an awesome time out there on the John Muir Trail this summer, Austin. I look forward to seeing your adventures as you captured them and when you load them on your YouTube channel. All of the information we talked about on today's episode can be found in the show notes by going over to hikingradionetwork.com and clicking on the Jester Section Hiker Podcast Show. If you find any value in what we do here at the network, please consider a donation or writing us a review on Apple Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody, and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets in these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets in these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.